Welcome to They Fucked Us Up, the podcast where we talk about movies from our childhoods that either traumatized us, terrorized us, or just stuck with us in a very significant way. I am your host, Xandra, and I'm here with.
Jake, hello everyone. How's it going?
Woohoo! We worked out the timing.
Yeah.
Um, this
Yeah.
week we are going to be looking at the Birdcage. Uh,
Which is a
Basically,
complete change of plans because we were
I
gonna
know
do
we were gonna do Witches of Eastwick, and then
and then Gene Hackman
Gene
passed away.
Hackman died, and so we were like, "Yeah, I want to do that." Because
Yeah.
I was trying to think, I was like, maybe Royal Tannenbaums, but you hadn't never seen that.
I think I did. We talked
I
about
feel
it and
like you and I watched it like long time ago, but
I'm sure I've seen it in school. I'm sure I've seen it with like friends in college.
mhm,
I'm sure we've seen it, but I remember all the trailers and
mhm,
the all the like clips from it, but I don't remember like actually sitting down and watching it.
right,
Of all the Wes Anderson, it's the least
memorable
memorable
for you.
to me.
Yeah, I get
But
that. And I kind of understand that, like,
for
not
most
to,
people, it's their favorite. But
yeah, not to go off on a super big tangent on Royal Tannenbaums, but um, I like, yeah, it's one of those that's slightly forgettable to me as well.
mm.
Other than like Gene Hackman and those kids, like, are the things that I remember the most, but it might also be because they were in the trailer a lot.
hmm
And then Angelica Houston obviously being like, "What the fuck are you doing here?" Um, but yeah, it when I first saw it, I think I was a teenager. I think my mom had bought it or something like that, which was
Mhm.
kind of random to me because she didn't at that time, like, we had Netflix, so she wasn't really buying movies too much,
Mhm.
but she
Was
had
it
bought
back
it.
like when you rent DVDs from
Yeah,
Netflix? Yeah.
yeah. Like the physical DVD came in the
Yeah.
mail. Yeah, before the streaming started. Um, so I don't know why she bought it. But I think I tried to watch it one time and I was like, this is weird. This is a weird fucking movie.
That's just all Wes Anderson.
I mean, that's true, but it wasn't until like Fantastic Mr. Fox that I was like, okay, I kind of get what he's doing
hmm
with his style,
Yeah.
that I kind of came around to it. There's still
Well,
some issues, like French Dispatch was like
I never
it
seen that
bored
one.
the crap out of me,
hmm
but that also could be because the main character is Timothy Chalamet, and I always want to call him Timothy Chalamet Ding Dong, which after his speech at the SAG Awards, he is a Shamalama Ding Dong. So, in my opinion, but
Uh, I, I like him in some movies, but yeah. He
yeah, I mean there are a few times that I like him in
I liked him in
things.
Dune. Yeah.
I see, I haven't, like, I think I tried to watch the first Dune.
hmm
I think it was just really boring to me. And so but I also could have been really tired. It was like
Mhm.
late at night. It was one of those, like, it was 2001 A Space Odyssey thing
Yeah.
where I started it too late at night and it's too boring for too long that I like passed out.
Passed out. Yeah, blossomed.
So, yeah, which
Well, coming to
2001 A Space Odyssey, I pass out every time too. So,
coming back to the Birdcage for a
mhm.
moment,
Yes,
I kind of feel the
I
same
mean, for
way
the whole
because
podcast.
because there's a lot of this that I didn't remember,
Uh-huh.
and rewatching it now, I know why. It's because there's not a lot that happens. A lot of it is kind of like
Yeah.
like written like a play because it's based on a play, so
Well, yeah.
it feels like a play,
Yeah.
and so there's like these
Well,
extended scenes of interaction and
is
dialogue.
the original French film a play?
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, it's
I,
got
I,
like a Jaffa.
yeah. I
Mhm.
just didn't know if it was play, movie, musical, movie. Kind of like MAME is, where it was play music, you know.
Did they make a Birdcage movie? I mean the musical?
Yes, in the 80s. That's where that song I Am What I Am comes from.
I mean I know that from the play. I didn't know that they made a movie, yeah.
Oh no, they didn't make a movie out of it, but they made the so the French movie came out before the musical came out.
Mm.
It was what the musical was based off of, was the movie. But I didn't
Yeah.
know if maybe there was an original French play before
That
that.
I
I
don't
probably
know.
should have
Okay.
looked it
That I don't
up.
know. I think so. I guess I was thinking of the musical. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Because the original La Cage aux Folles was 1977 or 78,
mhm,
and the musical was like 1980, I think.
mhm.
Um, and I think it was Jerry Herman who actually, talking of MAME, he wrote the music for that too.
Yeah.
But and it's funny because in my mind, I always feel like Jerry Herman and Stephen Sondheim like kind of competed with each other on on musicals back in the day. Are you looking at it?
Yeah, so actually it looks like it was a musical that was based on the play because
Okay.
the play was 1973 and then the
Okay.
musical was 1977.
Okay. I
No.
thought the
No.
movie came out before then, though.
No, so it's based on the play, the 73 and then
Okay.
the musical was 83.
Okay. Okay.
Like the first one, yeah.
So yeah, so it must have been that same thing where it was a play in France, and then it was made into a movie in the late 70s. And
Hmm.
then the movie came out here, won a bunch of awards, and then um it was made into a musical, which actually Mike Nichol, the director of this film, was supposed to direct the musical of La
Hmm.
Cage,
Hmm.
but he got fired for whatever reason.
Hmm.
Um, and which I'm almost kind of glad about because I like the way that the musical went. I don't know if it would have gone the same way,
Hmm.
but um,
Also, for our
and then
listeners,
yeah.
since I speak French, I'll make a note of this as well. So the title La Cage aux Folles, what it means in French. So the word "folle" literally translate to a crazy woman, like a woman who's kind of like woohoo,
Which makes sense. So
um,
is it like the cuckoo's nest type of thing?
kind of. But also in French, "une folle" is a
Uh,
derogatory word to
for
mean
a
like
gay person?
like yeah, it's kind of like fag,
Like the F word? Yeah.
but more specifically effeminate, like an effeminate gay man. It's kind of
Oh, okay.
like queen. It's like a
Oh, okay. Like
derogatory
the
version
cage
of
of the
queen.
queen.
Yeah,
Okay.
of the queens. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
but it
That
literally
makes
translates
sense.
to like like it's almost like saying the cage of fools, but like
Yeah.
female fools, but like
Yeah.
towards a gay man. Yeah. It's kind of like
We
it's
love French.
I know. Well, and it's kind of like a word that was like reappropriated by the gay community, kind of like
Okay.
a lot of
Like
women have
queer is
reappropriated
being,
bitch as kind of like
oh yeah.
like I'm a boss bitch now.
Yeah.
It's kind of like reappropriating a word that was very much an insult at the
Hmm.
time to now
Hmm.
it's kind of an empowering word, I guess.
Right. Which I mean, I get that, and actually, it's funny because I was listening to a podcast. Um, it was Nathan Lane was on this podcast for Mike Birbiglia, I think,
Mhm.
and he was talking about how like so Mike Nichols wanted to like one-to-one translate the movie into an American version, and it has the F word in the original French
Mhm.
movie, and he wanted him to say it, and he did not feel comfortable saying it because one, he wasn't an out gay man at the time. Like most
When
people in
Birdcage
the
came out?
industry, yeah, most people in the industry knew that he was gay, but like He wasn't out to the public at that point in time.
Hmm.
Um, and it was a derogatory word. It wasn't at the time when people were trying to take back the derogatory words, for themselves.
Hmm.
So he was like, I felt very uncomfortable saying the F word that
Hmm.
many times, which they
Right.
do say it quite a few times in this movie.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
so rewatching it, like, because we watched it Sunday night, and
Hmm.
like there was the scenes that I remembered. Like, I remember the whole, um, teaching Nathan Lane to walk, and
Oh yeah.
that whole scene I remembered. I remembered a lot of the whole awkward interaction between the parents, and
Hmm.
but
You didn't
rewatching it now,
remember.
there was so much that I didn't remember, but most of it, like I said, it's very much formatted like a play, to where it's just
Hmm.
extended dialogue scenes. And I think that's why I remember finding it boring the first time I saw it.
Mm.
I just remember being like, okay, this
When you were
movie
younger.
drags a lot, yeah.
Mm.
And now as an
Which to
adult,
me as an adult, it just like,
yeah.
there's
Now, yeah,
it is like a play. It does have a lot of dialogue, but I feel like it moves fairly quickly
yeah.
through the story. I don't
Like
know, in my
it
opinion.
it doesn't bother me anymore. But one thing that I did remember, because if we're talking about like the topic of our podcast, which is,
Right. What
um,
stuck with you?
and still what stuck with me was I remember at the time that I really didn't like the son,
Oh,
and that he was such a
no.
jerk. Also, that he's 20, he does not look 20.
No. Okay, so yeah, that's a thing. So
But
so he's 27 when he's playing a 20-year-old. Guess how old Calista Flockhart is playing when she's trying to, or is when she's trying to play a 19-year-old?
I don't know.
30.
Yeah, she looks 30.
I was like,
She does not look, neither of them look their age. It was comical.
yeah.
Um, but I just remember being like, I don't like the son.
Hmm.
Because I was really like, what an asshole. He should have never asked him that. As an adult, I'm like, I kind of understand. Like, but at the same time, it's still something that I would never ask somebody to do, like change their whole life
Yeah.
to. But I kind of get it. Like, I understand if it's something you really want, you would hope that your parents would
Yeah.
would oblige. But
Yeah.
it's also kind of like the big thing that stuck out to me, and going a little bit ahead, we'll come back to it.
Yeah.
But it's, what do you think is going to happen in the future? What do
Right?
you like?
Yeah.
You think you're doing
How do
it for
you
this
feel like,
night? How is
yeah,
this like? You don't think they're ever going to meet again? Like, this is just a one-time thing and
right.
they disappear
Right.
off the face of the planet? Like, that was what really bugged me. The logic of it bugged me,
I
because I'm
mean,
like,
that's how
but then again,
plays are, though,
you
to
got.
be fair.
But if you take in consideration that he was 20, which I didn't remember how young he
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. I knew he was
Taking
still
that in
in college, but
consideration,
I thought
yeah.
he was like a senior in college, which
Hmm.
still is pretty young, but like
Yeah.
is like 22, 23, depending on how long he's been in college.
Because he just acts too old for a 20-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's why I think when I was younger, it rubbed me
Also,
the
he's
wrong way.
drinking a lot.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. He's drinking a lot for 20-year-old whenever the drinking age is 21. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like it had changed
And
after
he's
this movie
introduced he's introduced to the
with
screen
alcohol.
with alcohol.
Right.
Yeah. Like, it's so awkward. He's okay, well, we'll get to that. But it's
I
like
mean, I think
pouring alcohol
that's,
for a lover, you
yeah,
think
I
it's gonna be a
know.
lover, and it's his
Right.
son, and you're like, oh, he's 20 years old.
Well, yeah, I guess we can just jump into it
Yeah, let's go.
because that's
Yeah.
that's kind of the beginning of the movie is you have this amazing looks like a one shot fly in. It's actually three shots that are, kind of cross-faded into each other.
Hmm.
Um, but into this drag club called the Birdcage, and you see like Armand, who is Robin Williams's character. He
Hmm.
owns the place. He's walking around, taking care of everybody. He's got this waiter that comes up and says, "Hey, the Kennedys are here. What do you want to do about their check? And he's like, which ones? Is it Ted? Which is
Hmm.
one of JFK and RFK's brother, which I don't know why he wants to placate this man because this man killed a person. So we're just not going to talk about that.
Hmm.
Um, and then they say, no, it's one of the kids or something like that. And so in my mind, I'm thinking like JFK Jr. or the daughter or something like that.
Hmm.
Somebody online was like, oh, they're talking about RFK. And I was like, I don't think so. I mean, he is a weirdo. He probably did go to drag shows or whatever, but I can see our JFK Jr. going over RFK Jr. Anyway,
Hmm.
and he's like, no, it's one of the kids, and he's like, damn. So he's like, just give him free coffee, and then goes up to whoever the Kennedy is, which looks like the JFK Jr. and is like, save room for coffee. And I'm like,
I just feel like that's such an insult.
it
Just
is. It's such an ins. I'm like, wow. I'm like, okay,
free
well,
coffee, the thing that costs you
like
maybe a
three
dollar.
cents. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, anyway.
I'm gonna make one comment, and this is coming from more of a film student
Yeah.
perspective. This is so stupid, so nitpicky, but it still made me go, why? So that during that zoom in, during
Hmm.
that, I think it's called
That
a
flyover and then
yeah.
panning.
They have the title of the movie there,
Hmm.
and then they fly into the club that has the exact same font and the
Uh-huh.
same word, and I'm like, what was the point? Why didn't you just
Right.
fly into the club
Yeah.
title and then that's it, and that was the title? Why would you do
Yeah.
it twice? It just looked stupid because it was like or
Yeah.
birdcage, and
Birdcage. Yeah.
it's just
It could
it
have,
was a little thing.
yeah. Yeah, no, as a design element, yeah, that makes more sense to not have done the titles first. Like you could have said, a
Just
movie
let the
directed by Mike Nichols and then the fly into the Birdcage.
birdcage. Yeah, exactly. I
Like,
It's so much more dramatic. It's just such a little thing, but
hmm.
there are little things throughout the movie that I'm like this there was not enough like not enough film thought into it. It's still too theatery to me. And that's
So, and kind of getting into it, and I know we usually try to leave this to the end, but Mike Nichols, he was a improviser. And the woman who wrote the screenplay, Elaine May, they were Nichols and May. They were a comedy duo back in the 60s.
hmm,
And then they broke up. He went and directed a lot of theater. She
hmm,
did a few films, but mostly did a lot of like screenwriting and screenplay doctoring, which is kind of funny to me.
hmm,
And then like he did postcards from the Edge and stuff like that and got a lot of he went from doing he went from doing plays to doing movies, which he actually directed The Graduate.
hmm. Okay.
And Gene Hackman was supposed to be Dustin Hoffman's dad in The Graduate, which
Hmm.
I'm like, that would have been a very strange movie, and I
Did that win the
don't think I
Oscar?
would. It did, yeah.
Hmm.
And um, so I think he still had a lot of
Hmm.
theatrical like thought processes, and then Elaine May's script probably was very theatrical as well.
Hmm.
Like she did several movies that had some acclaim, but then there was one really bad one called Ishtar in the
Hmm.
late 80s that people just critically panned. And I've never seen it. I need to see it because I'm
I
like,
don't think I've
what
heard of
is
it.
this movie? I've heard of it, but only in like in 80s television shows where they were making fun of it. And I feel really bad that they did that, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So back to this. So
yeah.
they offered coffee, and so then goes to the guy who's directing or like supervising the show,
Yeah, he's
right?
like the stage manager
Yeah,
for the
stage manager
show.
is asking where the next performer is. What is the name of Nathan?
Starina.
Starina.
Uh-huh.
Where Starina is because the like that's the next number and this number is
Yeah.
about to end. So you said his name
And
is Armand?
So Armand is Robin Williams's character. And
Yeah.
so the stage manager goes to Armand and is like, "Where is Starina? She goes on next, blah, 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 blah."
Mm,
You soon find out that Starina is actually named Albert and
mm,
is the Armand's husband, for lack of a better word, or life partner.
mm.
Because at that time, gay
I think
marriage
that's the word that
wasn't
they use a lot is
legalized.
partner.
Yeah.
And yeah.
He is throwing this little hissy fit,
Mm.
like half dressed,
No! I don't want him to see me! I'm hideous!
being like, "I
It's
can't
like,
go on. You're
I'm too
meeting
old.
somebody." Yeah,
Yeah.
he's basically like, "Armand, I know you're cheating on me." And he's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And Albert's like, "I saw the white wine being chilled. I only drink red,
And so do you.
and so do
I
you."
saw a bottle of white wine chilling in the refrigerator. I only drink red. And so do you.
So you must be having some boy over while I'm on stage. And he's like, "No, I'm just trying to not drink red wine because of the tannins." And he's like, "What the fuck are the tannins?" But like they have this lovers tiff basically being like, "You don't want me because I'm short and fat and old." And Robin Williams goes,
I made you short?
it always gets me every time. And then he's like, "Oh."
I know. Yeah. It's
And
it's it's pretty hilarious. I'll give it
yeah.
that. It's pretty funny.
I mean, Nathan Lane, you can't go wrong with Nathan Lane.
I
He's
know. I
just
love Nathan Lane.
hilarious.
Yeah.
And then like in the middle of all this, you're kind of introduced to they have so originally this guy was supposed to be just a dresser and he was just supposed to be there for the one scene.
Mm,
Because in the French film there was a dresser and there was a butler or houseboy or whatever you want to call him.
hmm
And basically and in the French play he was black, was the houseboy.
hmm
And they kind of went, "It's the 1990s in America. We can't have a black man being a butler." But they had it cast already. It was originally supposed to be David Allen Greer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was like, "Oh no." But I'm kind of glad that they just kind of rolled it all into one character, but at the same time it's like, but Hank Azaria is great. So Hank Azaria is
That's my
there.
favorite character.
His name is Agador. Agador Spartacus.
It's my favorite character. I mean,
Hmm.
uh, I had I
There's a
had
lot of people who give it crap because they're like, "Oh, he's a straight man playing a gay character and it's an over the top like Latin gay character."
Mhm.
But what were you gonna say? Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say that when I was younger, I characters that were overtly effeminate made me
Hmm.
uncomfortable. Part of the reason because like at the time I wasn't out yet, and
Right.
well, I was like I was considering myself bisexual.
Yeah.
And a character who like could not play straight, like would be out
Hmm.
no matter what, made me uncomfortable because I was
Right.
like, oh my God, do I do that? Is there anything that
Yeah.
I do that's just um but also I also felt bad because it was like I would imagine how much they would get picked on
Hmm.
for that. And that's why I think I specifically remember Nathan Lane's character making me uncomfortable, but for
Hmm.
whatever reason not him.
Which is
Which
funny
is funny
because
because he
he's
was
like
even
way
more.
more over the
I know,
top.
I know,
Like,
but I can't explain my logic. But I just something about this character, I just like it's funny because
huh.
I think it was more like he was framed a little bit more comedic. Like he was like
Hmm.
he owns it. He's all in it. Like
Hmm.
I don't care,
Hmm.
you know, whatever. Whereas that
Yeah.
Nathan Lane is constantly playing the victim, constantly being like,
Mm.
you know, I'm
Yeah.
being. Maybe that's why I don't know, but.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense as to your logic of why you would have an issue with one over the other because the other one, one is owning it and the other one's like,
And it's
all the
interesting.
time.
Did you ever see the movie Breakfast on Pluto?
Uh-huh. Yeah, we watched it together.
That was a character that made me really uncomfortable the first time I saw it. Like I remember watching it with my mother, it made me really uncomfortable but that's another character that like owns it, but is still
Hmm.
being like treated like crap.
Hmm.
And that's why I felt so bad. But anyway, that's a big tangent.
Well, and also maybe it's because you don't see Agador being attacked for his effeminacy. I mean, he is kind of, but he's kind of like meh. Whereas like
Like he just
Nathan Lane's
nothing
character
can,
takes
he's
it to heart.
unshakable. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
unshakable.
yeah,
Whereas, yeah, Nathan Lane takes everything to heart. Like
yeah, yeah,
Albert takes everything.
yeah.
Um,
So yeah, but anyway, so Agador is like, I'll take care of you. Here, we want a Pirin tablet. And he's
mhm.
like, yes, if you don't mind. And he's like, here's one for now, and here's one for later. And Robin Williams, and I guess for people who don't really quite have any interaction with the gay community, which I'm surprised you're even listening to this podcast in the first place. But um there is this like stereotype that drugs are a big thing in the gay community, which they're not
Yeah,
exactly wrong.
yeah, no.
But he's like, what are you doing? Why are you giving him drugs? And he's like, it's just an aspirin. I just scraped off the AS off of it. And he's like, oh, you're a genius. And he's like, I know.
I know.
But so Starina goes on and like then Armand comes down and he's like, hey, well, he comes down back into the house that they or the apartment that they live in and is like, about to talk to Agador, and he's dancing around like, and
And
he's
he's
got
like,
this red wig on
I'm
and stuff
Lucy
like,
and Ricardo put together.
yeah. I'm Lucy and Ricky in one body.
And it's terrifying.
And then like they kind of talk about a little bit of his backstory, I guess, is like Agador is like, I want to be in the show. And he's like, you sound like Lucy. And he's like, I'm Lucy and Ricky together. And he's like, um, it's because of my Guatemalan-ness. And he's like, you're what? Your Guatemalan-ness. The hell is that?
Is it,
But
I'll put you in the show when you have talent.
oh, yeah,
Damn.
and I'm like,
Oof.
rude, rude. And so he basically dismisses Agador like to he doesn't have to continue cleaning and stuff so that he's not there whenever he actually is meeting somebody, and the
Hmm.
white wine is for that person, and it is this Val, who's played by Dan Futterman, which he actually went on to be a screenwriter and he won a couple of awards for screenwriting.
Yeah, his face is really familiar to me, but then again, he's got that face that looks like a lot of different people. And then when I looked
Yeah.
him up, I was really surprised. Oh, he's mostly a screenwriter.
Hmm.
Not much of an actor, but
Yeah, and the things that he has acted in is interesting because they are also kind of part of the gay community in a roundabout way. Like he was in Will and Grace for
hmm,
several episodes. He was in, well, Judging Amy's not part of it, but I
hmm.
think there are a lot of gay people who like that one for whatever reason.
But yeah, I just remember looking it up and being like, oh, nothing that I
Hmm.
really that really stood out to me. But he just has that face.
Yeah.
Uh, but this interaction between him and
Hmm.
Al and
It's played very like this is my secret lover, and
I'm gonna
they
say
they
Robin
play
Williams
it
and
for
Nathan Lane because Armand and Albert are just too close.
I know.
It's gonna
I
throw me
know,
off. So I'm just
right?
gonna say Robin and Nathan. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry
yeah.
guys.
That's honestly that's kind of what I wrote in my notes too, because I was just like, they're Robin and Nathan. Like, I don't know why they kept with the French
It's
names,
just so close. It's so close. It's hard to.
right? Yeah, because I mean those are straight up the names from the French play.
Mhm.
So I'm just like,
And they're very
who's
old-fashioned
named
too.
Armand? Like,
Yeah,
unless you are Greek,
unless
which
you're a
his last name,
vampire.
yeah, yeah, which his last name is Goldman,
Mhm.
firstly, which he's gay, or he's a gay Jew.
Mhm.
And that comes up later on too. But um like Armand does not connote Jewish to me. I don't like unless you're a Greek Jew or something, I it just doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway,
Yeah.
so they play this for a very long time. And I think as a young person, it made me very uncomfortable whenever they finally like revealed that so Val, this guy, is his son. He's like he's come there from college. It's mentioned that he's 20 and that he is, well,
Did they ever explain why they were trying to hide from Albert
oh,
or Nathan
um,
or Albert?
well, yeah, Nathan. So I no, it's still kind of awkward because they don't fully explain it other than I think Val just kind of wants to run it past his
Yeah.
dad first before they make the mention, and it also it's funny because it kind of subverts an element to it a certain way
Mm-hmm.
because he's basically like, I'm engaged
Mm-hmm.
to a girl I'm going to school with who's 19, I'm 20. And Robin Williams gets really pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't quite really understand why, or at least in my mind, it doesn't quite compute to me, other than maybe he's too young to be getting married. But
Mm-hmm.
I think as a young person, I thought he was mad that he was getting married to a woman
Yeah.
because it kind of slightly comes off that way.
It does kind of come off that way. It also, I don't know. It also because part of it was him kidding ish.
Hmm.
Because but at the
But
same
he
time,
is like, Albert's gonna go through the roof or something whenever we tell him. And I'm like, why would Albert get pissed off too? Like, I just really don't understand. I guess it has to be the age thing. It has to be that they're so young
yeah.
that they feel like they're throwing their lives away
Mhm.
doing that so young.
And when you know a little bit about Robin's character,
Hmm.
out like Armand, like his backstory, it kind of makes sense a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. I
Like
mean,
he
because
doesn't
he didn't,
regret having Val. He doesn't regret
yeah,
it at all,
yeah.
but
Which,
it's still
by the way, I guess we should probably say it's not fully revealed until a little bit later on, I think. But so Val is Robin Williams's son
Mhm.
biologically, and and the reason why is because his character, Robin Williams's character in his younger years, was an actor and part of the chorus and stuff like that. And then he decided one night to try to try to have sex with a woman
Mhm.
and be straight, which he didn't have a problem with the sex, it sounded like from the conversation later in the movie.
Yeah.
But he was still just like, it's still really not my thing. So I guess it
Mhm.
comes off as he's more of a bisexual, but like with a strong, you know,
Mhm.
want to be with men instead of women. And so the woman that he slept with came up pregnant and she was a dancer. And so she's just like, this is going to kill my entire career. And he's like, well, but it makes it sound like he and Albert were in a relationship already,
Mhm.
which would make sense for why he acts the way that he does later on in the movie. Um, but anyway, so
Like
he's like,
getting really like territorial.
yes, yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
Which so they're just like, oh, we want to have kids. Well, they basically paid her for Val, which is okay. I
That's
guess
yeah, that's
surrogacy. I mean, that's just surrogacy now, but usually you don't have sex with the surrogate, but you know,
right, right.
usually. Um,
Old school. It's the old school.
right. Which I remember there was a Friends like story arc where what was it? Phoebe came up and had a twin brother, and the twin brother wanted to have a kid, but like his wife was infertile, so he wanted like some of her. It was very strange. I was like, this feels incestuous. Oh
Mhm.
no, it was that she couldn't carry the kid, but they could put a fertilized egg in somebody else. So it was basically like Phoebe had to carry the kid of
Yeah,
her
I do
twin
remember
brother. And
that.
I'm like, oh,
That is weird, isn't
oh.
it? Yeah.
There were so many weird storylines that just the 90s were wild, y'all. The 90s were fucking wild. But
Why do you think
anyway,
we ended up like this?
yeah, right. The 80s and 90s were wild. But anyway, so there's all that. They have the conversation, and he's like, "Oh, she's a really good girl. She does come from, a slightly more conservative background than I do."
Mm,
And like they call her and or hey, I told my dad
mm.
he's, congratulating you, and he like smashes his glass on the phone
What
by
was that about? I don't get that. What was that
he was
about?
he was just so nervous that
Oh, okay.
he like
I was just like,
overreacted and was like he wanted to like make a pinging sound with his glass to be like we're toasting you now, but it's like he
and you
just
smash it.
smashed it against the phone, and he's like son of a bitch. And then she's sitting there with her parents, which her parents, it kind of intercuts back and forth for the next couple of minutes with him and his dad, and then her and her parents. And her parents are Senator Kevin Keeley and his wife Louise, and they are played by Gene Hackman and Diane Weist, which like that's the whole triggering, obviously, for doing this. Plus, it has a very relevant storyline to a certain extent, at least
Hmm.
for the LGBTQ plus community.
Hmm.
Um, because the whole story is basically, about prejudices and stuff like that. But he is a conservative senator from Indiana or Ohio or something like that. Somewhere in
I
the
want to
Midwest.
I want to say Ohio, but
I think it's
I
Ohio.
yeah.
And he is like, um, he,
So
uh,
he's on this like show where they like
yeah, it's like a debate show where they're watching his, um, interview on this debate show, which
it's just a
that was
bunch
a
of
th
men shouting at each other,
it
and
was
he's
a,
like,
and
it's
he's
the
like, this is
smartest show
the,
on TV.
yeah, and I was just like, oh my God.
Oh man,
Um,
do I not feel like that so much?
Right? Because, well, and that was a thing too back in the 90s. It was very common to have these shows. Like it started in the late 80s. There was this show called Donahue that had a similar thing where they'd try to get people of different viewpoints to talk about an issue, and then it would inevitably get into a heated like talking match at each other or shouting match at each other.
Hmm.
And then like they kind of continued that, and that's the whole reason for Tucker
Gee,
Carlson.
where did we see that this week? Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
Uh,
I'm not gonna lie. So I was listening to a podcast, like kind of going over what they were talking about and kind of adding a little bit more context to the conversation. And I had to turn it off because I was just like, this is a triggering, like it feels like every conversation I've had with certain people in our family
mhm.
that just
It's just
become them shouting at you, and you can never get a word in edgewise to like even stand up for yourself.
it feels dystopian that it's on
Oh, well, yeah, I mean,
that it's on national TV. But anyway, we're not getting into
I
that.
know, I know.
But it is interesting that like we're already seeing
Because
it back then.
Senator Keith, well, because this, so I'm gonna throw in a little bit more color into that, and this, I hope I don't make the podcast too long, but this has been in the works for 50 years. Ever since the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and whenever, or ever since the um the actual case of Roe v. Wade, I should say, being put into place, and then Richard Nixon being put into the government, they all coalesced and was just like, this is crazy. Basically it was a reaction against the hippies. They were like, no, we can't have this free love and everybody bullshit. And like, we got to go back to our morals, our Christian morality, and blah 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 blah. And it's just like, give me a fucking break.
Yeah.
But anyway, um, but that was a thing in the 80s, was this whole moral right. And then so he's part of this coalition for moral morality, like moral order,
Yeah.
which I was just like, oh, that's even worse somehow, moral order. Um,
And
and
then
his
and
and then
then
there's a breaking news item where his co-founder is found dead in the bed of a underage sex worker
who was
who
also
is also
African
black.
American. Yeah.
And it's
And
like,
that did not age well.
no.
Both Mickey and I went,
I
oh
mean,
man, that did not age well.
but accurate.
But accurate, but also just kind of like, whew,
Yeah.
wow, wowee.
Oh, and then when they interview the chick later on, and she's just like, he had a smile on his face, so I thought he
Yeah.
was enjoying it.
Oh yeah. It's just there's so much about that scene that was cringy, but
But he's
but
just like,
so now he's like, oh my God, my career's over. I gotta
mhm,
gotta go into hiding or whatnot.
yeah,
And then that's when the wife has the idea, right? Where the wife
yeah,
is like, yeah, let's use this wedding as kind of our white wedding.
hmm
Like,
hmm
ooh, let's combat this whole situation with, oh, this is moral, this is the
Oh,
family values.
the conversation that they were having before the news broke was also that like, oh, who is he, what kind of family is he from? And they're like, oh, he's from a family from South Beach, that their dad is a at
Artist
art
art.
attaché to
Yeah.
Greece. And I was like,
Yeah.
what the fuck is that? I was like, I don't think that exists ever in this country. Maybe in France it does, but I don't know about
I mean,
in America.
I think she was just talking out of her ass trying to come up with
Hmm.
a name. But like,
Cultural attaché to Greece.
yeah, like of all the things you could just make up on the spot, like that would be like the
Right.
last.
He could have just been like a cultural board member for South Beach. Like,
I think later on they change it to they just start saying cultural ambassador. I think
yeah.
that's what they say, but
Which,
like
I mean, that is, I think that's technically what an attaché is, or something like
mm,
that. At least in, American
I don't
minds
know.
or
You
whatever.
could have said something like an art dealer. I don't know, just
Right.
anything. But
There were so many other ways that they could have gone about this, but
it's it's
that's the
just
thing,
that
is
just begs
like,
so many more questions. Like
well, but then go ahead.
when somebody says to you art ambassador, doesn't it make you want to go, tell
Yeah.
me more? Like
Yeah.
I would have
To
chosen anything
Greece.
else not to have any more questions after I said.
Right. Yeah. Oh, what does that person do?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, but you kind of get a little bit of a glimpse of it, that the dad's like, oh God, they're in the arts. What kind of depraved arts are they into or whatever? And she's like trying to placate him and stuff. And then the dad asks, like, has the son been tested? And the mother's like, Kevin. And the daughter goes, yes, he's been tested, and so have I. And she goes, oh my God. And the daughter's name is Barbie, or is Barbara,
Bro, I
but
think
her
keep calling her
mother
Barbie.
will not stop infantilizing her by calling her Barbie. Like, even after she's told her, like, stop calling me Barbie. I don't like it when you call me Barbie. Like, she
At one point, she's
keeps
like
calling.
Barbie raw.
Yeah, she tries, but like, they still kind of just
I mean,
ugh.
is Diana Weiss doing her best Diana Weiss? I mean,
Yeah, Diane Weist. Which
she,
is funny because, so like, I
I
keep
always think of
watching
her in
Brooklyn.
Footloose. Huh?
I see, I've never seen that.
And she basically plays the same role, like
Yeah. Well,
basically.
and I think John Lithgow is the like
He's a
the
pastor.
dad, but he's a pastor and he's like
She's a
hell and brimstone, crap like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and she's a pastor's wife, and she's like trying to defend the kids to an extent, but also on his side.
hmm
Basically the same role. I mean,
hmm Which is
but
funny because if you've seen like Bullets Over Broadway or anything like that, like she's a totally different character in
or
that. Like,
practical magic.
well, that too. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, she's the one who has the idea to like, hey, we could have this, pure Christian wedding, and
Hmm.
like kind of distract from the the guy dying. And he's like, I don't know about that. And then he has to like sneak out of the house to go
Hmm.
talk to his advisors or something. I'm like, why can't you just call him up on the fucking phone? I don't understand that part, but whatever.
There's a lot of sneaking around, a lot
hmm
of like paparazzi, like
hmm
a lot of weight is given to the I say weight, screen time. A lot of screen time is
Yeah,
given to this paparazzi, but then it's kind
especially
of
the one specific one from the Inquirer, which like you don't know that well, do you know that he's from the Inquirer in the beginning?
they
But like
mention it,
they
yeah.
mention it, but I think that's later on whenever they like other TV
It's just
channels are like looking them
like
up and stuff.
weird, weird comparison, but it gives me the
hmm
same vibe as Spice World.
Oh my God.
Like it
Yes.
just like it feels so
That
like
fucking guy that
yeah,
is like following them around
yeah.
who
But
which
that's why
I
I couldn't
never
take it
realized.
seriously. I couldn't take
I
it
never
seriously.
I never realized the guy who so the photographer in Spice World is Richard O'Brien, who's
Yeah,
Rocky Horror Picture Show.
yeah.
And then he's working for this guy who it's the guy who plays Dame Edna, but in his male form.
Mm.
And he's basically making fun of Rupert Murdoch. And it took me, I don't know how long to realize. I mean, probably till recently
That movie
because I
just keeps coming
hadn't
back.
it does. But I love that movie. But it's
I
fucking
know.
weird. But I love that movie. Like that should be on the list. I'm not gonna lie because it's fucking weird.
It is.
And I saw it as like what, 10? I think it came
I
out
know. I was
whenever it was
probably
like
younger.
9
Yeah.
or something like
Yeah.
that. So I think I didn't get it until it came out on DVD, which probably would have been when I was like 10 or
Yeah.
VHS. I'm sorry, I had a VHS of it. Why did I even say a DVD? I had a VHS of it. I clearly can see it. Anyway,
I guess we have to remember what time period we're in because like
yeah.
nowadays we don't need all that because everything happens online. But like back then,
Yeah.
maybe like pictures of him leaving
hmm
his house on a
Well, I
ladder.
mean, TM's, oh my God. Yeah. Well, and the funniest part is the way that he's like climbing up the ladder, he does kind of a Richard Nixon like bye y'all and like climbs back in and I was like, fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
But
So
it's
yeah,
kind
they
of funny
decide to
that he
go.
makes fun of that so much. Yeah.
They decide to go to South Beach. Meanwhile, they cut to like it was the next morning, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
that's when Nathan Lane's character Albert
Mm-hmm.
just figures out that finds out that it's Val, and he's
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh my God, why
Why
didn't you tell
didn't
me
you tell me
my
he's
baby was
here?
here?" You know.
My piglet was just like,
And one of the things that Mickey and I like to do when we're watching movies is like guess people's zodiac sign, like character's zodiac sign, or
of
like
course you guys do.
we do stuff like that, or like tarot cards because we're both tarot
Mm-hmm.
nerds.
Mm-hmm.
But like Nathan Lane just gives me the stereotype of a Cancer.
Yeah, I
Like
could see that.
this entire movie, just I'm just like he
Mm-hmm.
is just a big old Cancer mama.
So so who's Robin Williams like what?
I couldn't decide. I was like he gives me like kind of a fire sign. Like I could see
Mm-hmm.
him being like a Saggy or
Mm-hmm.
maybe Leo, maybe Aries. I don't know. He just gives me fire sign.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe he could be a Capricorn.
Meh. Mm,
No,
mm,
but
nah.
I would say probably Leo or Saggy.
Yeah. Um, I would say Sagittarius, honestly.
He gives me
He's
Saggy because
he slightly reminds me of Kevin. Just in his, comebacks or whatever. But
well, when I think of Sagittarius as a stereotype, I just think very like even
mhm.
keel, but also just like one thing can set them off,
There's an
and all
undercurrent. Yeah.
yeah. But of all the fire signs, the most like
Hmm.
calm and even keel until they're not.
Yeah. Um, so so they have this whole like part where, they're talking about, oh, it's Val, why didn't you tell me it was him? And he's like, oh, you wanted to talk to me, alone. And he's engaged to this girl, and Albert's like,
Don't be
he's
ridiculous.
only a baby, like type of thing. And he's like, well, yes and no. He's not a baby really, but he is very young, and I'm kind of worried about this type of thing.
Hmm.
But and like and like you also see Albert like walking through the town getting groceries or whatever, and knows everybody in town when the Schnecken beckons, which that was an improvised line, which I fucking love. But and is very Nathan Lane for that. Um but yeah, and like
And it's around
and
this
like
time that they realize that they're actually coming, right?
yeah, so I
It's
think
while he's out.
a little bit later.
Mhm.
No, I think it's a little bit later. He like is like, "Oh my God, they're coming like now." And they're like, "What do you mean they're coming now?" And it's like, they're coming now and we need to get Albert out of the house."
Mhm.
And he's talking to him about it, and he's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And he's like, "We can't have Albert in the house when they're there. He can't, how are we going to, one, explain it, and two, he cannot pass us straight."
Yeah.
And
And you
and
need to tone it down too.
yeah,
What do
and
you
you
mean
need to
tone it down?
and we need to tone all of this down.
Touches his
What?
face, puts the
Yeah, and
foundation on the wall. Oh man. That is triggering to me.
it just pissed me off more than anything, because I was like, you're gonna have an oil spot on that wall for the rest of its life.
Well,
But
that's what I mean by
whatever.
trigger. For me, triggering is just it's so disrespectful in a way of
Hmm.
like
But
this,
okay,
you are in this person's house
right. Yeah.
talking shit to their face, and then
Hmm.
and
Well, I
like
mean, it's his dad, so I mean,
but still
I know, I
I
know.
like as an
I wouldn't have acted
me.
like that to my parents, but
Adult me
also
was like,
that was a
you're gonna come in my place and talk,
uh-huh.
kick your
Yeah.
ass out, you little bitch.
Yeah, right.
It's like, yeah. I was
Yeah.
mad. I was mad. I was like,
Hmm.
oh.
Hmm. Though to be fair, what is it with older gay men and nothing but penis statues everywhere?
Oh my God. It's
What
a
is
thing.
that?
It's a
What is
thing.
that? I know my dad tried to not do that to a certain extent, but then fucking his fucking his screensaver on his computer were nothing but naked men.
I think what I've noticed in my personal life is
Hmm.
when you meet people who have been very repressed most of their life
Okay.
and they
Yeah.
decide to get out, they
They
go
go
180
whole hog.
the
Yeah.
other way. They're just like, I was not allowed to do anything fun for all these years, so now it's just
Yeah.
open
It's like
season. And it's like,
making up for the time that they lost or something.
but at the same time, I'm like, you can
Not
still
everybody
you.
wants to see penises everywhere. Like, sorry. Or boobs. Like, I mean, it would be the same thing for lesbians. If I went into a lesbian's house and I saw nothing but vagina paintings everywhere, I think I
Yeah.
would be like, I'm very uncomfortable. And also, you spent a lot on something that looks really weird.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually there was a store in France that I swung by while I was there. It was
Hmm.
because I remember specifically as a teenager I went into that store and it was very like you know, incense and
Mm-hmm.
singing bowls, and it was very like all ethnical,
Mm-hmm.
like not ethnical,
Oh, that one. Yeah. Yeah. Ethnic,
yeah, ethnic, yeah.
multicultural, like,
But there's a whole wall full of like wooden dicks, basically, like big wooden dicks that were statues for fertility. And but the owner was obviously like really gay, and I
no,
remember being
yeah.
like, as a teenager, I was like, oh my God, look at all this.
Was it still there?
Yeah, yeah, it's still there.
It
It's
was filled with a bunch of dicks too.
but this was what back in
Oh,
2001,
yeah.
too, and I just,
Yeah.
as a 12-year-old,
Well,
I was like, what?
I mean, so like when my dad had his gay gift shop, which everybody was like, what makes a difference between a regular gift shop and a gay gift shop? And I was like, the Barbies are anatomically correct. I was
Some of
like,
the birthday cards that you get
yeah.
almost pornographic.
Oh, they
Yeah,
skirt
I
the line. They
know.
skirted the line on that. And as like a 13 to 15-year-old seeing that, I was like, okay,
So I guess
this is a lot.
in that sense, I agree with the son to
Yeah.
an extent. I agree.
Yes.
Like,
The
let's
statue
tone that
thing
down a
was,
little bit.
I was like, you could probably just hide some of these statue things.
But the moment he
You did
says you need
not
to
have
change
to,
you,
yeah.
like your personality and who you
That was
are,
fucking rude.
yeah.
And instantly, so it's so funny because everybody's like, oh, it's the parents and specifically the dad of Barbara that are the villains. And I was like, no, not really. In my
Mhm.
opinion, it's still Val
Yeah.
because he's the one who's asking for this. I'm like, as much as I may have some issues with my dad's partner, I would never ask them to tone down their selves. Now, that's not to say that my dad hasn't embarrassed the shit out of me
Mhm.
by being himself, but I mean, I can't
It's a
control that.
yeah, it's what comes, you know, it's a part of it.
Yeah.
And again, like this is why I come back to what I said before. If this is going to be your life partner,
Hmm.
their parents are going to come back at some
Yeah.
point. And so what do you
They
like
need to know the real story, the
just
real what they're
rip
getting
that band-aid
into.
off now
Yeah.
because like why do you think that hiding it now is going to make it better later?
Right.
Like
Well,
it's
and I think so I think what I was reading somewhere was, oh, they thought they had more time and they could like slowly introduce it into it, but then
mm,
that happened and they got kicked off and that may be the case,
mhm.
but also why did you even think that was necessary to be like, I mean, I get
Yeah.
it. And I'm sorry, I probably wouldn't have gotten with somebody whose parents couldn't fully accept me as
Mhm.
me. I mean, though saying that, I understand
It's
the,
complicated.
yeah, I mean,
And we
it
are
just relationships are complicated.
and we are talking about a different time too, so we have to keep that in
Yeah,
mind. But
but still, it just seemed kind of, to me, I just sat there and go, what is Val like that he attracted somebody that comes from that type of background?
right.
Like,
I
what
think
kind of weirdness are you into? Like, I feel like he's probably one of those frat boys that, you
yeah,
know,
he definitely gives that vibe.
yeah, yeah.
But so when it comes back around to, what to do with Albert, that's another thing that was
They're
I felt
basically like send him away.
yeah.
And and
Yeah, and
that's
it's
the shittiest. I was like, you could have just said he's like an uncle or your dad's friend or something like that. Like, I just didn't understand why you had to send him away.
Mhm.
Like, because even if he does come off as queer as hell, like, you know,
And interestingly enough, I watched a video that a YouTuber was making
hmm
on Sex in the City,
hmm
and they were just kind of binging it and giving their thoughts
hmm
on it, and they were talking about how one of the main plot points at some point is that the main character Carrie
hmm
wants to get married because she's so triggered by the idea of being like not having ownership of the apartment because she's in this relationship with the guy, or at some point,
Oh, okay,
and
okay.
that like she had another friend who basically just got kicked out of their apartment because they weren't
Mm.
legally,
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so in that sense, like the idea of just being forced out of your own home
Hmm.
for something like this, I like
Yeah.
it sets a precedent of like, okay, so what's the next thing that you're going to do to kick me out of
Hmm.
my own home for
Right.
a couple of days at a time when,
Yeah. When
it's
what your
it,
kid comes over? Like what the yeah.
it's just it's so I could and I think that's why I'm bringing it up is for the listeners. Like
Hmm.
I know a lot of people now would feel triggered by this.
Hmm.
Like and I would I think that marked me too when I was younger.
Hmm.
Maybe subconsciously, but it's the
Yeah.
idea of nothing is solid, nothing is
Hmm.
um
And
it's
and it and with my dad being gay, it kind of hit a little bit of home because like my dad never said, "Hey, don't tell anybody I'm gay," but like other people in my family did.
hmm,
Don't tell people that your dad's gay. And it was like, well, why? Like, and as
hmm,
a kid, you don't understand the whole like
the
other
dynamics, yeah.
people don't understand and don't see it as something bad. But when it's not fully explained to you and you don't understand it, like it
Hmm,
does something psychologically that's kind of weird to you.
hmm,
Which it sounded like, Robin Williams did that to his son when he went into like kindergarten or something. And he's like, well, your teacher was closed-minded. And it was like, yeah, but like it sounds like he's continued to do this. And
hmm.
like at a point in my life, like I think it was middle school that I was like, hey, my dad's gay, like to all of my friends. And they were like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
you know, and they didn't have any problems. Their parents maybe were a little bit weird, but they were more weirded out about my mom being divorced. Like, and that pissed me off, but whatever.
I feel like people poke at something when you try to hide it more than when you just be honest
Right?
about
Yeah.
it.
But
So yeah,
but I mean, yeah.
so obviously Albert is triggered, and I mean
Yeah.
the modern
And
way, the modern sense of the
yeah.
term triggered,
And rightfully
because
so.
right, because it's you know
He's like,
this is
I
his life, this is
raised
his home.
you. Well, and that's his life. They've been together for decades or whatever. And Val has he's raised Val like his own child.
Hmm.
So to have your own child be like, I can't have you here when, you know, we're meeting the love of my life's parents
Because you're
because,
embarrassing, basically.
yeah, is shitty. But like, so he tells Robin Williams to tell him that, and he's like, I gotta go to rehearsal. We'll talk about it later. He
Hmm.
goes down to rehearsal, and Nathan Lane's character is like singing this song, which, by the way, all of the non-pop songs are songs written by Stephen Sondheim for other musicals.
Really?
And I,
Oh,
yeah,
that's cool. Okay.
yeah. And I was like, that's interesting. Like songs that he wrote for musicals that never, like, they either got cut out of musicals or he didn't use them for whatever reason. So
Hmm.
he was a friend of Mike Nichols and he's like, here, use these songs. So there's like three of them that are used in it, which is funny to me. But he's singing one of the songs here and rehearsing with one of his dancer boys, and this has the best, like, just this whole sequence is like the best. And the dancer boy is like chomping on gum, and he's like, Armand, he's chewing gum. And the guy goes, it helps me think. And he's like, there's not enough gum in the world. And then later on, he's like, I don't really understand what you're trying to explain to me. And Nathan Lynn goes, try more gum.
Like a little later, the stage manager's like, "Hurry, you got to get down there." He's trying to take his gum. Like
Oh, yeah.
Nathan's character's trying to take his gum from
Yeah.
him.
That was the best. I was like, what the fuck?
that whole scene was, and then
Yeah. And then he goes, here's what you need to do. You need to be
Fosse,
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 Fosse.
Fosse, Martha Graham, Martha Graham, Madonna, Madonna,
Madonna.
Madonna, but you
But
do
all
it all
inside.
inside.
That whole I really I wonder if that was improv.
It
Um
was, yeah, it was
because
definitely improv.
that was very Robin
Yeah.
Williams. It
Oh
was very
yeah.
good.
Yeah. And what's funny is I read something and I heard it a couple of times and other things that Mike Nichols had to have like a soundproofing like blanket over him while he was directing that scene because he could not stop laughing and he was ruining the takes. And I was like,
I
that's
could
great.
yeah.
That's fucking hilarious.
I could
I don't know how anybody kept a straight face during
yeah.
that whole thing. And the guy who was the dancer, he did dance for Madonna during the
No.
like Vogue
Oh really? He was in that
like
video?
era. Yeah.
Oh, no.
So I think that's hilarious too.
That was cool.
Um but yeah, he basically like tries to like he just can't bring himself to say it to him and then Val is like, "Oh, did you talk to him about leaving?" And he's like, "What do you mean I'm leaving?" And he's like,
Mm,
when he comes up and they're also trying to like fix the decor in the
mm.
house and tone it down. And
Oh
Albert's like, "What are
yeah.
you talking about? Like, what do you mean I'm leaving?" And so like he's like, "Hey, you need to go away for a couple of days." And they had that whole discussion about like, well, you
Mm,
can't be around these people, like they're coming and he's a conservative senator and Albert's like, "What the fuck?" Like,
mm.
and so I think when did they have the conversation? Oh, when did they have the conversation about bringing Val's like biological mom?
I think that's later.
Is it?
Um because they go because it's after Robin Williams and Nathan Lane have that whole scene, that touching
Okay.
scene with the alimony,
Yeah.
alimony
So
papers.
yeah, in the first scene actually, and I was just watching a video on this, like there's a first scene where um they mention like I want a palimony agreement, which is the only way you could basically like legally tie yourself to somebody
Hmm.
back then who was somebody of the same sex. So it's basically what's mine is yours or what's yours is mine type of
Hmm.
agreement. And he's like, I want a palimony agreement. And he's like, well, I don't have one on me right now. And that was in the first scene. And then there's this scene where, Robin Williams is trying to calm down Nathan Lane. And he's like, you
Hmm.
know, I still want a palimony agreement. And he's like, I have one back at the house, we'll get it signed, blah, 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 blah. And
Oh, he brought it with him. He has it. He signs it right there.
no, not at that point in time. That was later on.
Oh,
Because
okay.
there's
All right.
three times that it's brought up, and the third time is when he's like, it has the like, I need you to sign it. And they're like, why? Because
Because
I'm
everything belonged
giving
to you.
you, yeah,
Is
everything
there,
belongs to you.
yeah. So give
And
me
so,
half.
yeah. And so,
But
mhm,
no, I was gonna say because it was just a really sweet moment because
yeah.
like you can tell the way that Robin Williams' character interacts with Albert, like that he genuinely cares for him and everything and loves
Yes,
him and everything.
that's how it becomes kind of that genuine like caring moment is like fuck it, like you're not going away, but we're gonna try to like train you to be masculine, which I'm like, boy, boy, you have no idea how to be masculine. But this leads to another one of my favorite scenes where he's like, you don't just dribble dots of mustard, men
Beer.
smear.
Men smear.
Smee, that's it.
Yeah. Get the goddamn pinky down.
Put your goddamn pinky
Pinky
down.
down.
And then he's like, okay, get up, try to walk. And he like walks like he normally does in kind of prancing style. And he's like, that's not gonna work. And he's like, here, think John Wayne. And apparently this is also in the French play. It was like the John Wayne thing, and I'm like,
Mhm.
why John Wayne of all? I mean, I guess, but like John Wayne walks kind of funny, like he's
Mhm.
got a limp. And I'm
To me,
like,
he walks like he's drunk.
yeah, I'm just, which he probably was. I mean, let's be for real. He was also
Yeah.
kind of a shit, you know, as far as Christian right goes. But anyway, um, and so he like tries to, and
No good?
he's like, no, I just never realized John Wayne walked like that.
Which
Um,
which leads into the scene where they're
oh,
like all
but
dressed up.
no, Armand tries to like he tries to do the like, hey, you old so and so, how about them dolphins? And then he's like really aggressive with him about it, and like this other guy is like, hey, dude, leave him alone. And he's like, what the f he's like, you
Gets
want to
all of
fight
his face.
me? And he's like, really? Because he's like twice the size of Robin Williams, and apparently he's like, it cuts, and like Nathan Lane's like icing his head, and he's like, you were so brave back there, and he's like,
While he was sitting on you.
yeah. And I was like, that's the best. Because he tried so hard to be, macho man. And then it was just like, that man, wasn't he like didn't he say he like slammed his head into the ground and then sat
Yeah.
on him or something? I was like,
Yeah.
damn, I'm surprised he's not worse off than what he was. But, um,
So then they do that whole dressing up scene where
mhm.
like they're all getting in tuxedos. And so then um Nathan Lane comes in and he's wearing a tuxedo with the pink socks. And I feel to me that
Lavender, honey, lavender.
lavender was
Actually, I
it?
think it's fuchsia. I think they call
Yeah,
it lavender,
fuchsia.
and I'm like, it's fuchsia, but whatever.
Yeah, because it's more on the pink side than it is on
Yeah, it's
the
like a pinky purple
fuchsia.
side. Yeah.
Yeah. Um like I like yeah, he's obviously gay,
Hmm.
but I think they gave him a lot more shit in that scene.
Yeah, it was like
It
he
doesn't
looked
look that
fairly
like
normal. He just like he tried to like lean against this like the chaise lounge basically and
hmm.
just like slid right off and then was like, I don't know what to do with my hands and
Because I mean, they did the whole farce of like I'm trying, I'm clearly
hmm
very awkward and everything, but then he says something like, "You think I look a lot worse like this, don't you?" And it's like, I don't know. I mean, I think he looks fine.
yeah,
It's just he just needs
it's
to
just
like get
not
comfortable with his
him.
body. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I think that's when they talk about getting the the biological mom and Albert's like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And like Val is like, "Do you think she'd do it?" And he's like, "What the fuck? I'm being replaced like in real time with a woman." Like, and so he kind of agrees to go along with it and like they're gonna go see Val's biological mom. Excuse me.
I think it was because
Um,
the framing was acting. They were saying you can do this. You're an actor, and I'm a director. La,
mhm,
la, la. And I think
mhm,
that's probably why they thought of it
mhm,
because she's also an actress, or she was an
mhm.
actress. So maybe
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they're like, oh, she could play that part. And so um they like head to Miami where she has her business. But I think intercut with this piece is whenever like they the Keeleys are heading towards South Beach and they
Mhm.
have the paparazzi like following them
Mhm.
and then like and Kevin Keeley's like driving at one point and he clocks them being followed and I was like, how did you not clock them following you
Before, yeah.
hours before?
Mhm.
Like, and so he like makes an abrupt like move, and
Mhm.
then the paparazzi has to also make an abrupt move to
And like
follow
three
him.
cars swerve behind them.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, geez.
If you couldn't
Um,
make it any more obvious.
right. There's this whole like side thing about like he has to have candy to placate himself, and he's constantly asking for
Yeah.
candy, which I think is kind of funny, but also like, for what purpose is this?
It's
I
like
need some
his little
candy.
his little like little
Like
uh
self-soothing.
Yeah.
technique or sad. Is like a baby. Like again, it's just like this woman has two babies on her hand, an actual child and a man child. Like, and I feel kind of bad for her to a certain extent. Um, but
So
yeah, so
they
yeah.
Oh no, go ahead, go ahead. I was just gonna say, so they show up at the so what does she do for a living? She's a fitness person.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, she runs like like a gym or something, right?
Mhm.
Or it's like a dance fitness like aerobics gym
Name
type of
and
place.
kind of lifestyle too.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
it's played by I completely forgot.
Christine Baranski. Yeah,
I completely forgot that was
it
her.
took me a while before I finally like it finally sunk into my memory that this is Christine Baranski. And I think this is the first time I ever saw Christine Baranski, but the first time I ever really like remembered Christine Baranski was in Chicago.
Yeah, she got
But I think that's because she has more of a part.
understandable,
Ooh,
understandable.
understandable. But yeah, they're like so he like goes into her office to talk to her to like convince her to come down and play Val's mom and like leaves Albert out in the waiting room, which I
Mhm,
was just like, you probably should have talked about that before like this all went down, but
mhm,
whatever. And it's very awkward. This part actually like makes me really uncomfortable.
mhm,
And I think it's just because I get really like offended, not offended, but like it makes me super uncomfortable whenever straight women know that a man is gay and they still try to like hit on them.
mhm.
Because she's like straight up hitting on him the entire time they're talking. And
Yeah,
at some
like
point, like
show me your
lays
chest
hands.
hair.
Yeah, he's like, show me your manly chest hair. And I'm like, girl, geez, like you do you need to get laid? Like he's not gonna help you. They almost kind of make it seem like they did fuck in that office, like off camera or something. And I'm like, I don't
Well,
think that's the
it's almost
case,
getting
but
there. No, no, but it was getting
yeah,
there. Like they were
yeah,
flirting really hard.
yeah.
No.
Um, but yeah, the song that they dance to is another Sondheim song, which I think
Yeah,
is funny. It was
and
supposed to be in the musical version of A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum,
okay.
which I think is funny to me, but
Because it's, I mean, that sounded like a straight up. I thought that was a song from an actual musical.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so that makes sense. Yeah.
Yep. So, but yeah, so they're like reminiscing about like their time in musical theater together and then talking about, you know, what happened between them and stuff like that. So that's how you find out like she's how how she
They
is
met.
really
Yeah.
Val's biological mom and like how that all worked out.
Mhm.
Um,
She has no maternity.
Filter and no maternal instinct
No.
whatsoever.
Like she's just
Oh
like,
my God. But
oh, well,
she
yeah.
even says it. She's just like I didn't want a kid, but like because I have
Hmm.
no maternal instinct. And I'm like, okay, well, it's a good thing that they took him, but like also you're fucking weird. Like I
Yeah.
don't like you. But also I love you because you're Christine Baranski, but also
But the character is, yeah.
yeah, the character's terrible. Um, wake up.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Um, but yeah, so like Albert walks in and he because he's like we have been waiting here I've been waiting outside here for so long there's only so many stupid health magazines I can read and watch this bimbo go through health magazines
And
and and
of course, when he
she's
walks in,
like yeah, Christine Baranski is like, show me your chest hair. And he's like, ah, you know, and he's like, gets the total wrong idea. He thinks that they were like going to fuck or something. And so he's like, this is it. I'm out of here. And like takes off with the car, which he cannot drive. And
I remember seeing a meme with that scene somewhere recently, like somebody using
about the
that
like not
him in the
being
car,
able
like
to, yeah, yeah.
Like, I forgot what the context was, but it was. I remember seeing that scene. I was like, oh, that's from the Birdcage. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so like Robin Williams shows up at the house and he's like, where's Nathan Lane? And Agador is like, he hasn't come here.
Mm.
And he's like, ah, crap. And then he's like, I got here before him, even after taking a bus from Miami to South Beach. And he's like driving my stick shift car all the way from Miami to South Beach, not knowing how to drive a stick shift.
Shit. Yeah, I would have the same issue.
Yeah, I would too. Um, but yeah,
And
so
so that's where the scene is. Yeah.
yeah, that's where they do the palimony agreement signing and talking about how like you already own everything, like the club, our house, like
Mhm.
if I die, you get or if we split up or whatever, you get everything. So, um, oh,
I'm
and
a,
and Robin
I'm a
Williams
gay
is
man in
like,
my 50s. You're the only
yeah,
one.
yeah. And it's super touching, but
It
before
is.
that, he like tells Agador he needs to make dinner, and Agador's like, I don't I don't cook. Like like the son is like, do you cook, Agador? And he's like, well, your father certainly seems to think so.
Oh,
And
and that meal is so nasty.
it sounds absolutely disgusting, but anyway.
We'll get
So
to
they
it.
show up, and like so the daughter has said that their last name is Coleman, so that it's not Jewish. And they show up and everybody's ready. I mean, they have an argument and Nathan Lane goes and locks himself in the room. So he's like, he won't be out for hours. This will be fine. And
Mhm.
like your mother's on her way, and
And they pull the whole like, so they do the whole thing, awkward interaction with
mhm,
the parents,
with the
and then
butler and
Robin Williams and
yeah.
Val, with the whole excuse of, oh, the mother is late, she's on her way, and then
Hmm.
it cuts to her and she's in traffic, and
Hmm.
with the boat,
Yeah, the
the bridge is,
ferry, yeah,
yeah.
bridge, yeah, which
So
is
you
so
so
there's
you
a
already
part
know.
early on like the that Agador doesn't wear shoes because he doesn't like wearing shoes, and he's like, you have to wear shoes, and he like falls trying to answer the door, and he's like, I don't wear shoes because I fall, I told you this. And
So
then he
it's a running
answers and he
joke.
like deepens his voice and says that his name is Spartacus. And they're like, what the fuck? And they're like, okay, this is weird. And the way that they have redesigned this apartment is in the
Is
most
insane.
severe like monastery way. Like I don't even understand what they were going for with the redesign.
They have this huge crucifix in the background.
Yes. And
It's
like
like
these huge chairs that have crosses on the back of them, like they're altar chairs or something. And I'm like, what the
it's
fuck?
it's absolutely
Who
insane.
who thought that this was a good idea? Oh, and all they're like, it came with a bunch of books, and she's looking at the books, and they're all Nancy Drew mystery. Like they're
Yeah.
like nice leather-bound versions of Nancy Drew mysteries. And he's like, "Oh, those are my wife's books." And she's like, "She has such great taste." And I'm like, for a child, yeah, I guess. Like it makes me wonder if they were trying to like portray the mother as having this just infantile thought process anyway. And that's
Mhm.
why there's all this like she treats people like children because she is a child or something. I don't know.
I think a lot of it is also just her being like in denial a little
Oh, and
bit,
naive and stuff.
naive, like, oh,
Yeah.
because she also she has this
But
expression that looks like it's strange.
yeah.
I don't
But
think she even knows what Nancy Drew is. That's the vibe I got.
oh, okay. Yeah.
I got the
I
vibe that
I
she didn't
just
know what it was.
I just thought she was just like, these are children's books, but okay. Um, but like, yeah, and like they portray her very naive, and then later on you kind of are like, oh, she's not naive. She just plays it because that's the role that she's supposed to play.
Mhm.
And and the dad is so just like kind of dismissive of Armand, and like he doesn't even almost acknowledge Val the entire time. And like they're like, oh, where is our wife, where is my
Mhm.
wife, and like we know that she's not coming. And then all of a sudden, like, Nathan Lane dressed as a woman comes out of the room and is like, oh, the traffic was terrible,
What was the name
and
they gave her?
Mother Coleman.
Goldman.
I thought the D was silent.
It is pronounced Coleman, isn't it? We've had some confusion.
Oh, yes, Coleman. The D is silent in America.
They just
Yeah,
kept
but
calling her Mother Coleman the whole time, and I was just like,
I I was thinking to myself, man, the makeup and the style makes her look so old that I'm
old.
like,
I know. I was just like, she looks like she's 60 years old. What the hell? And the fact that they keep calling her mother, it reminds me of Mike Pence. He always
Mhm.
called his wife mother.
Mm,
And it was just like, oh, why? Oh, why?
yeah,
Just,
that's weird. Yeah.
is she your mother? Like, I hate it. But like she acts kind of naive, and they're like, this is never gonna work, but like the dad is super into it for whatever
Smitten,
reason, just
smitten with her.
from the get-go. And I'm like, okay, okay,
Okay,
we
yeah.
see. And like even the mom clocks it and is like, what the fuck? And like she
This,
spends
I feel
this
like
like
this scene goes on for
weird.
a while, huh?
It does it well, but it kind of keeps coming back and forth, and like, and the person, this podcast that I was watching was just like, it goes on for so long, but you almost are like on the edge of your seat because you're just like, when is the shoe gonna drop? And
And because the whole time, Robin Williams' character and Val are
they're
getting more and more
freaking
drunk in
and
the
more freaked
kitchen.
out.
Yeah. And you're just like, somebody's gonna do something
And so
stupid.
like, yeah, and so like they're like, dinner is served, and they pull out these bowls, and the who just, it's another one of those like, why? Just why? So like the china is covered in like Grecian boys fucking.
Mhm.
Apparently, I don't, did they even show it? They just kind of are all just like,
No,
these
they're
are,
all like, ah.
yeah, and they're like, oh, these are boys. And somebody's like, I have a girl. Don't you have a girl? I have a girl. And then it's like, no, I think this is ancient Greek, wrestling or whatever. And then Agador comes in and like slops down the soup on all of
Super.
the Keeley's bowls before serving.
And they
Um,
describe the soup as like what, sweet and sour, and it has like egg
Sweet
in
and
it
sour like stew or something. And I'm like, ew, what?
with boiled egg in it. That's
Yeah,
disgusting.
yeah. And he's like, oh, it's his special like seafood chowder, and like Robin Williams says it's a seafood chowder, but then he everybody's like, but there's an egg in it, and they're like, oh yeah, it's so Guatemalan to add an egg to everything. They're worth their weight in gold, type of thing. It's like currency down there. I'm like, oh my God.
You forgot the shrimps.
Yeah. And he's like,
Fuck the
okay,
shrimps.
yeah, where is the the main meal? And he's like, what do you mean main meal? This is the main meal. And he's like, what do you mean? This is just supposed to be an entree. And he's like, I didn't know. I don't know how to cook. I just made something. I made it up. And like there's a part where Robin Williams falls in the kitchen with the soup, and that was a blooper, and everybody is laughing. That's why they act so fucking weird in the kitchen. And
Oh, that's funny.
and he's like, shut up, goddamn you, shut up. Like you forgot the shrimps and like throws the shrimps into the stew. And Val is
That-
like a Muppet, you know, to go downstairs to leave a note for his biological mom to say don't come in. But then he does leave the note, but the paparazzi people like have
Yeah.
tracked him there and like have done a lot of research that I just before internet, I don't know how you could have gotten that much research done in that quick. I mean, I guess they're reporters, so maybe they have.
But also like straight up taking like
Oh, and they
the
take the
note.
note
They take
off
the note. I'm like,
and read it and just take it with them. And I was like, wow, y'all are a bunch of bastards doing
oh
this.
God.
And also they've paid off the guy's driver to like tell him what's going on and stuff. And I was like,
Mm.
this driver sucks, but whatever. And so what was it? So he goes back upstairs and like it's surprisingly doing well. Like they're singing, they're dancing and singing to I could have danced all
Of all
night.
songs.
And like Robin Williams is playing the piano and Diane Weist is singing with him and then like Gene Hackman and Nathan Lane are dancing together and he's like you're the he's basically you can tell he's just like smitten with her.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden like um the biological mom shows up and is like, sorry, I'm late, everybody. Or was there something
What
right
happened?
before?
Yeah, what happens before is like at some point Nathan Lane bends down,
Oh, the
gets back up,
hair.
and the hair, the wig goes completely.
They decide to have coffee and she's serving the coffee and like the wig falls forward and like he comes up with the wig just kind of like all jacked up and everybody's like let me I just want to love on you mother and it's just like let me fix your fucking wig.
So one thing that I was a little confused about,
Hmm.
and I like it made sense later, but if at
Hmm.
first the first time that Nathan Lane comes out, um, what's her name? The daughter,
Oh, Barbara.
Val's yeah, Barbara, Barbara.
Barbara.
Um, she's never met Nathan Lane's character, right?
No, but she's just like already in love with him.
Well, but she has a face of like she gives
Like
me
she
her
knows who it
acting.
is,
Yeah, her acting gives me she knows who that
but maybe she just clocks that she knows it's not a woman.
right.
But
I guess that's
I
what's
mean,
I was a little confused by that at first, but
that's
then
kind of rude to a certain
yeah.
extent to be just like, you're not a woman. Like,
It's a man, baby.
That's not your mother, it's a man, baby!
dumb. And why won't you die?
But so, but then, so because she clocked that, so she's like with Val and Robin
Hmm.
Williams, like, let's get you out
Trying
of the
to, yeah.
room.
Yeah. And like even like while they're dancing and singing like Val and Barbara, so they've clearly communicated to each other that that's not his biological mom, that is Albert and then says, "Oh, my dad loves her." And he's like, "Yeah, but it's not a her." And she's like, "Oh, right, I keep forgetting." And I was like, what? But you
Really?
seem to
Really?
instantly clock that it was a man. So I still don't understand. There's a little
It's
bit
confusing.
there's a plot hole that, is, you have to just kind of overlook.
Yeah.
But
So they take him out of the room, and
mhm.
then at that point, that's when the biological mother
Oh,
knocks.
yes. So everybody like Val, Barbara, Armand, and Albert, they all leave the room at the same time. And so
Mhm.
it just leaves the Keeley standing there, and the mother is getting pissed at the dad, being like, you like her more than you like me,
Mhm.
and just like she's so
What are you even talking about?
innocent and naive, and she's like, what are you even talking about, Kevin? And then
Well, and then
yeah.
you think for a moment that the father is actually going to come out and like clock it finally, and
Hmm.
then he gets it completely wrong because
Hmm.
he's like, Oh, I'm so disgusted by the situation. He is a European like
Hmm.
sleazebag who's treating this woman
Yeah, so
terribly.
poorly and blah blah blah. And she's like, "What are you even talking about?"
What are
Like,
you even talking
yeah,
about?
yeah. She's like, "You're the
I
one who's
really
making so many, concessions and well, she tries to almost stick up for Armand or something like that, but also just being like, there's something weird going on here.
there's something weird going on, and she's like, but you would defend your your career over your own family or something. I don't
Hmm. Hmm.
your family values or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
and so
basically like you want to have a affair with his mom or something. I don't know. And then all of a sudden the doorbell rings and Agador goes to answer the door and it's Catherine, who's Val's mom, standing there and being like, "I'm so sorry I'm late."
Mhm.
And Agador's like, "Let me take your purse as per usual or for the first time." And it's like, "Oh my God." And then like kind of gives the
And
whole jig away.
I think that's when she messes up and says Goldman, right? Because
Yes, yes.
she didn't follow that
Yeah,
whole
yeah. Oh, well, yeah, because earlier in the story, whenever Nathan Lane comes in as the mother, like they have this whole conversation of like they keep having this conversation of like, is it Goldman or
Goldman.
Coleman or is it Goldman or Coldman? And she's
It
like,
depends on
"Oh,
what
it's
country I'm in.
wherever you are, depends on which country. We never know what our last name is until we hear it said." And I'm like, "Why okay." That was a weird it's funny, but it's a very strange
Not-
conversation to have. And then Catherine's like, "It's Goldman." And
Mhm.
they're like, "What do you mean?" And then everybody comes out and they're like, "Ah, shit, she's here." And they're like, Armand, what's going on?" Like,
And then Val just straight up is like, okay, jig is up, and then just tells
yeah,
the whole
and just
thing.
snatches the wig off of Nathan Lane's head. And I was like,
Like,
"You son of a bitch. You fucking son of a bitch." And and
he's
he
the
goes,
worst. He really
he's so bad.
is.
I'm just like,
He's
"You
such an asshole.
asshole." But then like, I think they thought that this was going to redeem him by saying, "This is my mother," to about Nathan Lane's character, and this is just the woman who gave birth to me. But like, it's still just the rudest way of like
And
doing it
also, you're the one that put all of these people in this
in
situation.
this situation.
Like,
Like,
it does
they
not
didn't
redeem
have to.
you.
Yeah. And so, and then like the dad is super confused. And like the mom has to be like, "Kevin, the mother is a man. They're both men."
And I was kind of surprised at her reaction. Like, I don't know.
Like
Maybe I shouldn't have
she's
been, but like she's been so
vaguely
reasonable.
progressive about it.
Yeah, and then all of a
Um,
sudden she's like, oh,
yeah,
like I'm
yeah,
like, what? Okay,
yeah.
good.
I don't know. They kind of didn't know what to do with her, I feel like.
Well, and I think that this is a big part of the my issue with this movie towards the end.
Hmm.
Like this to me is the cut point where I
Hmm.
think past this point it's just kind of like, okay, let's wrap this up.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
Well, let's just wrap this up
Yeah.
because then that's when so they're
So they
about to
try to
leave.
leave, and the
Yeah.
paparazzi's right there at the door, and they're like, "Ah, shit, we can't leave." And so they're like, "How are we going to get out of here? I can't be, after my co-founders found dead in the bed of a underage." And they just keep calling her a whore. And I was like, "Stop calling her a whore." Like, I know it was the times, but like, Jesus
But yeah,
Christ.
yeah.
Um,
Again, didn't age well.
no, that part doesn't age well. But like, I can't be found in a drag club.
Hmm.
And like they took a while because they kept hearing the songs and stuff like that, and they kept saying, "Oh, I don't know what that is. I always thought that was somebody's stereo, blah 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 blah." And then they finally have to be like, "That's my club down there. My partner is the star of the club, blah 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 blah." And he's still just like, I need candy. And just like, stop with your fucking candy.
And then out of the blue has this idea of, wait, I know how we can get you out of
Yeah,
there. Decides
yeah.
to put them all in drag. Of course,
I mean, Gene Hackman in drag, though.
that's my favorite part.
It's my favorite part.
It's one of,
I'm
it's
just so
okay.
surprised that he agreed to do that. I mean, not
Well,
surprised because, like, af as I've gotten older, like, I know a little bit more about Gene Hackman, that he's way more progressive than I had the
he just
idea
always
of him
plays.
being. But he always plays like a cop, or an FBI agent, or somebody in these like manly, masculine authority positions, and then you throw him into a dress and he's so uncomfortable and has to
He's
like
a,
dance his way out of the club, and he's like, please, for the love of God, don't leave me here.
and it's so funny too because he doesn't know the song, and so
Yeah. And it's like
it,
We Are Family is
he's
playing as
he's like, we're family.
I
Yeah.
get over here.
But but he actually doesn't look, I mean, okay, he doesn't look good,
He doesn't look good, but he doesn't look
but
terrible
he doesn't
either.
look terrible.
It's
Like
the nose that gives him away, because he has
compared
one of
to
those massive noses.
Barbara, looks awful.
Awful.
They
She looks like a
just
dead version of Sally Bowles.
yeah,
Like,
she looks like Sally Bowles died of a heroin overdose, is what she looks like.
she does.
It's awful. She's
She
like
really
so
does.
pale, and
Uh-huh.
oh man,
Oh, and then she's just like, I'm as good looking as any of these girls in here. I'm like, nah, girl.
no, you're
Nah, you're
not.
not.
I'm
You're
sorry,
really
but no.
not. And then the mother's getting hit on and
And they put
she's
her in
dressed in leather,
an
in a
S&M with
leather,
like a captain hat and everything,
and she's like,
and she's getting hit
okay,
on by a
I'll get
man.
into it. And he's like, I've never danced with a man before. And she's like, there's always your first.
I've never danced with a man before.
There's always a first time.
And I'm like, I'm sorry. This
She
woman
was
would
having too
not be
much
getting
fun.
into this. Yeah.
I just I haven't seen a lot of interviews with Diana Weist, but
Yeah.
I just get the vibe that she just has a good time in whatever she's in.
Yeah, I think so. I
Because like
mean,
I just every time I see her on screen, I'm like she just looks like she's having a blast.
right. Well, so what was it? I've been watching a lot of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and
Mhm.
one of the characters has an obsession with her.
Mhm.
And he's like, I came down with something, and he's like, oh, what? He's like, I came down with a giant case of a Diane Weist infection.
Oh God, ew.
And there's like a massive pause, and he
Uh.
goes, no. And he's like, get it like a yeast, and then it like cuts to the credits. It's just like, oh my God, shut up.
Shut up.
But I mean, I'm like,
It's
I get
terrible.
it. She's fun just in everything that I've seen her in. I always have to try to remember what I've seen her in. I know that I've like, I should remember Practical Magic, but for some reason that movie just does not retain in my head for some reason.
Like but she still plays like the kind of naive, like
Yeah, she's
well-meaning,
definitely the more naive one of the two in that one.
but because I mean she's playing opposite Stockard Channing, so
Yeah.
of course.
Well, and then she's the mom in Edward Scissorhands, and so
That's
like
right, yeah.
she's kind of a similar character there too, and so it's interesting. I mean, it's just kind of funny. And then they like come out of the club,
Hmm.
and they put him in like a car, and he talks to his chauffeur, like the dad talks to his chauffeur dressed in drag, and is like, meet me on the corner of blah and blah, and
Like
the
not
chauffeur
for a
is
million
not for
dollars.
$1 million. And I was like, yeah, I wouldn't either. That's fucking weird. Like,
But what's interesting that there's a I don't know if you caught this, but there was a look from one of the reporters
oh yeah.
that saw him and
Hmm.
clocked it,
Hmm.
and Ben
And
just kind
then
of gave like
turned
a
around. Yeah.
smirk,
Yeah.
like ignored it.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But then the show his own chauffeur didn't recognize him.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like,
How did this guy clock him, but his own chauffeur doesn't clock? Like, you should at least from the voice,
right.
because it's
And the
not
way
like
he's
he changed
talking,
his voice.
right. So,
But
but honestly, like if you've ever been to like a drag club and you've seen
mhm.
like people in drag, he doesn't look that bad.
Yeah.
Like I mean, he's not passing by any
No,
like
by any means. Yeah.
clearly a man in drag,
Yeah.
but like
So you've got like him, he's tall. Like he's like 7 foot tall or like not 7 foot tall. He's over 6 foot tall. But then you have this other drag queen that's also really tall that works in the club, and I'm like, definitely looks better than Gene Hackman in a dress. But 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 it was funny because in research for all this, like
Mhm,
Mike Nichols had a PBS documentarian
mhm.
go and make a documentary about drag queens
Oh,
and
really?
showed it to Nathan Lane and Robin Williams to like get them prepared for the part. And I was like, that's
And
so extra.
that is
What the
really
fuck? Like,
and also Nathan Lane's like, honey.
right? And I was just like, did you not know Nathan Lane was gay? Like, you could have just gone to a drag club. Like,
Right, right.
or talked to, I mean, they're also all in theater. Like,
Like, and that's also that sounds really expensive. Like it sounds like almost making a whole
right?
other movie within a movie, like,
Right? And I'm
just for the
just like,
making of a
and
movie.
also I sit there and I'm going, where's this documentary? Because I want to see it.
Right.
But it's just so funny.
And
Like,
the drag is not even that prominent in the movie, so it's like,
right? I mean, it really
uh,
isn't. I don't really understand the point of doing that, but you do you, whatever.
mhm.
Um, so
But yeah, if I had to, like coming back to,
mhm,
the whole
our
topic of the
podcast.
podcast, our podcast, like,
Hmm.
I think, I mean, it's not made for children. It's not traumatizing. Like, it's not.
No
I think that you and I have more personal, like,
connection.
connection to this because we both like me being gay, you having a gay parent.
Hmm.
Um, but like it also being, kids of the 90s and 80s.
Yeah.
Um,
Which I'm
I,
pretty sure I just randomly saw it on TV. It was
mhm.
another one of those like it was playing on TV all the time as when I was a kid, and I was just
Yeah.
like, it's interesting that it did play all the time on TV, but I'm kind of glad that it did.
Yeah, I mean, because there's nothing really like offensive about the
Yeah,
movie. Like it's pretty, it's family friendly.
yeah. Other than the F word, but
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, like visually, there's nothing. But I
hmm
guess emotionally, I guess that's where it would be a little bit more like, especially if you're a child
hmm
who's growing up gay or has gay parents or
hmm
like gay people in the family,
hmm
that whole emotional like
hmm
being treated like having to be kicked out of your own home, having to be
right.
somebody different, all those
Yeah.
things. I think
Which
that's really where it is.
Yeah, it was definitely significant because I think I was just like, that's kind of like even as a kid, I think I was like, that's kind of fucked, like
Mhm.
to do that to Albert. But my brain always went with the bad people are Barbara's parents.
Mhm.
Which now in further examination, I was like, no, Val is the bad person.
But it's also very it's also just kind of portrayed matter-of-factly, which is really
Hmm.
I think in that sense it's very ahead of its time
Yeah, for sure.
because like even Tu Wong Fu thinks for everything, which I love,
Hmm.
but it's kind of outlandish a little bit.
Yeah.
But,
Well, and
like
Priscilla is too. Like
like not a,
Priscilla is like somewhere in between. So like even though the birdcage is kind of over the top, it's still a little bit more grounded than
Mhm.
a lot of you know, gay centered films are. Whereas like Tu Wong Fu is way over the top.
I would compare it more to like Kinky Boots. like
Like
just
Birdcage is like kinky boots?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
because like
Something that could actually happen.
yeah. I mean, so now with the nowadays with
Hmm.
like well, no, it did happen back then, but nowadays it's
Hmm.
becoming more
It's more
accepted and
prevalent. Yeah.
prevalent is people who now identify as transgender who
Hmm.
are almost always in,
Drag.
in drag.
Hmm.
Um, but like Chuang Fu Thanks for Everything was outlandish for the time because it was just showing these drag queens constantly
Always
in
in
drag,
drag.
all in drag, which to me that would be transgender nowadays.
Oh
That would be
yeah.
considered transgender. That wouldn't
Yeah.
be like,
Yeah.
even though they have a whole conversation about it in the movie about the definitions
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
what a drag queen
Which
is,
I
what
was just like,
what transsexual, which
yeah.
is an outdated term, but
Yeah.
but still for like your common audience,
Did they say
your
transsexual or they say transvestite?
they say both. What a transsexual
Yeah.
is, what a transvestite is, what a drag queen is.
Oh God. Yeah,
Um,
I forgot there was a
like
distinction
we wouldn't really
back
use
then.
that word anymore,
Mm-mm.
but like for the general audience, to put that in their face
Mm-hmm.
is both, it's both progressive, it's both
Mm-hmm.
like it's kind of cool that it's so accepted,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also like this is not a common occurrence in the gay community
Mm-hmm.
to happen.
Yeah.
Whereas that what happens in the birdcage is like this is the people's lives. This is what
Right.
happens
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
And for it to be like to be brought up and shown in their face is
Mm-hmm.
that's something. It's really important, you know.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because it sucks. It's good, but it also kind of sucks. So it is the first movie to have gay people as the lead character to break 100,000 or 100 million or something like that. 100 million, because it made $182 million
Mhm.
in the box office, which was amazing and great. But guess who broke that? Or what
Huh.
movie broke that?
What?
Bruno.
Oh no. God.
And I'm like, that's not a no, please. That's not a good, it's not a good one to have break that. Which I hope has been broken since. I really hope has been broken since. I would think Brokeback Mountain would. No, that came out.
It was a little too indie, I think.
Yeah, that's true. That came out earlier than
It
Bruno
did
did.
well, but it wasn't
Yeah, it
not
wasn't quite that. Yeah,
because I think
but
Bruno had the whole Sacha Baron Cohen
mhm.
uh
Borat thing.
yeah, that fan base that went to go see him for that
Hmm.
reason.
But
Um, oh God, that
so
movie.
I know. So on a lighter note, do you want any of the trivia that I
Yeah,
came
let's hear it.
across?
Let's do trivia.
So Robin Williams was not originally supposed to be Armand. He was supposed to be Albert.
Okay.
And Steve Martin was supposed to be Armand. And I was like,
Interesting.
I see it, but also
That would
it
have
wouldn't
been.
have been good. It would not have been good.
They have really good chemistry, like
Yeah.
Nathan Lane and Robin Williams.
Yeah.
Also, I think Nathan Lane being the effeminate one,
Hmm.
also
But
being
he's
like,
the
being gay,
only
and
actual gay one in there. Yeah.
I think that's probably more
What
because
grounded it a little bit more.
that, but also like you know how people complain about like gay people not. It's such a weird topic to have
Hmm.
because there's a lot of people complaining that um, that there's not enough there's not enough transgender actors that are
Hmm.
playing transgender characters, not
Hmm.
enough gay people playing gay characters, but then at the same time in the same conversation you have a lot of people who were outed in Hollywood and then
Hmm.
were afraid that their careers were ruined because they would only be character
Right.
actors from there. I watched a
Yeah.
whole documentary about it, about
Yeah.
the guy that was in Freddy 2,
No, yeah.
who I don't know if you heard about
I think
that.
I know about to a certain I remember reading about it. I don't remember the full story though.
But basically, like he was basically outed by the movie,
Mm.
in the 80s, they were just like, it's the gayest horror movie ever. And so it ruined his career and he just went into hiding because it was.
Yeah.
And so, like,
Oh yeah.
I get it. But, like, I
Hmm.
think that if we're having that conversation, I kind of like the fact that Nathan Lane would play,
Hmm.
that character, and then Robin Williams would play the bisexual.
Right. Well,
Because,
and he was also like super concerned about playing the gay character because he wasn't out yet, but
mhm,
he was gay, most people knew that he was gay, but he wasn't out to the public yet as being gay. And
mhm.
so he was kind of like afraid of doing this to a certain extent, but he was just like the when do you get to work with Mike Nichols, who's made like I don't so many like Oscar award winning
It's okay. You did the
movies,
producers a bad
right?
turn.
Um Actually, so what it was he almost didn't take it too because he was supposed to be in a Broadway production of A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum.
Mhm,
But Mike Nichols knew the producer and basically convinced him to hold off production on that show until
mhm.
after they had finished filming.
Really?
And
So he
so,
did it at the same
yeah,
time?
yeah, like right after he did the production right after
Hmm.
they
That's cool.
filmed this. And then he got a Tony Award for that. So,
Nice.
yeah. Um, so yeah. But then and the reason why they got Nathan Lane was because did you ever see Mrs. Doubtfire?
Yeah, a long time ago.
So Mrs. Doubtfire has like the Robin Williams character, he has a brother that's gay and like makes him up into the Mrs. Doubtfire character.
Hmm.
And Nathan Lane was originally going to play that character, the gay brother who
Hmm.
puts him in the makeup, but Harvey Firestein was like, "No, I'm going to play this." And so um Robin Williams was like, "Okay, he's going to play this character, but I promise we'll work together down the line or something like that." And so when this came up and so Steve Martin actually was set up to be Armand, but he had to drop out because of scheduling stuff. And then
Hmm.
Robin Williams was like, "I want to play Armand because I kind of want he kind of wanted to get away from the dressing and drag thing,
Hmm.
which, I get it. Also, he would have looked really funny. He's so hairy.
Yeah, and
It
yeah.
just wouldn't have worked anyway. Like unless they like shaved him like constantly, which I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
And I think for Starina they had to really go for that like musical
Super,
theater.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I think
So,
Nathan Lane was the perfect for that. So
yeah, yeah. So, he's the one who convinced them to get Nathan Lane to replace him, and then, um, like the Hank Azaria thing was funny. They also considered Jim Carrey and Billy Crystal for Armand.
Billy Crystal. Oh God.
I mean,
Oh
Jim
no.
Carrey, that would have been terrible
That would
too.
have been terrible, yeah.
Diane Keaton was originally going to be Diane Weist's
You know,
character, and that would have
I
been
I always get them like like they're very different, very
uh-huh.
like Diane Keaton is always
But
very neurotic
they're like
and
the same they come from the same time frame, the same. I think they were both in like Woody Allen movies back in the 70s, which
mm.
I'm sorry about that. Um, but and then apparently Hank Azaria was best friends with Billy Bob Thornton and he was filming, so Hank Azaria was filming this and Billy Bob Thornton was filming Sling Blade at the time.
Oh, really?
Have you ever seen Sling Blade?
I'm aware of it. I don't
I
think I've
saw
seen it.
it a long time ago. That's one of those that I think I like shut out of my brain because I was just like, what the fuck is this
This
movie? But he had like the only thing I can remember is so he's like I think he's like a mentally challenged person or
mm.
mentally disabled person and I just remember him saying, French fried potatoes.
Oh, I know what this is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did see this actually. Yeah, 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 I did see it.
I just, I need to go back and watch it to be like, what the fuck was this movie even about? Because I just remember the French fried potatoes and that he was mentally disabled.
And he would always go
And
in front of everything.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they would drive around together around set and pretend like they were the two characters that they were playing in these two different movies as like a buddy cop, like improvising. And I was
That's
just like,
funny.
what the fuck? You guys are fucking weird, whatever.
That would be really funny characters, the Sling Blade character,
Right?
and then oh, what? I can't. I'm not gonna even try to pretend like practice, like do his
Oh,
voice, but
oh yeah. He's my watermelon.
my watermelon is. I
Originally,
love that character.
I know. Originally the movie was supposed to be made in the 80s and and they were gonna have Frank Sinatra play Armand
Oh no.
and Dudley Moore play Albert, and I'm just like, I'm really glad that did not happen.
Frank Sinatra trying to play gay. Are you serious?
A gay club owner. Yep, that would
Mhm.
not have worked.
No, no, it would not.
Um, Also Anthony
Especially
Hopkins.
if any of the rumors are true about how Frank Sinatra was during
Oh, I
set,
know.
it would have been
Yeah,
awful.
yeah. Anthony Hopkins and Kevin Kline were also in thoughts to play Armand.
Oh, Anthony Hopkins. Oh. That
All right.
would
Uh,
have been weird as
it would
hell.
have been weird. Because that was like right after Silence of the Lambs, I think. That would have been,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody could have taken him seriously after that. Like,
No.
I don't know. Kevin Kline, I could see.
Yeah, I can see Kevin Kline, especially like after A Fish
Yeah.
Called Wanda.
Oh, yeah. Well, but he also did a lot of Broadway theater and stuff like that too. So but anyway. Um, and then what was it? Oh, Robin Williams almost turned this down because one, he was working a lot at the time. He made like 12 films in like a period of like 4 years. So
Mm,
he was like, I'm burnt out on this, and I need to take some time. And then he also was like, people have already seen the original, the original French one.
mm,
Why would we even need to remake this? And then he kind of was talking to other colleagues, and his other colleagues are like, I have no idea what you're talking about with that. Like they had never heard of it or they had
mm.
never seen Le Cage aux Folles. And he was like, okay, maybe this is a movie that does need to be made. And I'm like, I'm glad they made it because,
Yeah, it's like
from
it's
hmm
no, I was gonna say like we've already touched on it. Like
hmm
it's clearly a significant movie.
Yeah.
Um, I, there's a lot of other movies that were more significant to me, but it
Well,
is the
yeah.
movie that comes up to a lot of other people. Like I've
hmm
heard a lot of people bring up the
It's the
Birdcage as
most mainstream, I think,
yeah.
gay film that we've probably first seen. I say
I
gay film, but like
I've heard a
about
lot of people
gays.
say I've heard a lot of people say that that was their first contact with the gay community. What
hmm
like whether they were straight or gay, like just
hmm
having kind of a glimpse into it.
Well, and this podcast that I was listening to was kind of talking about that is like, so this was a lot of people's first interaction with the gay community in any kind of sense because they had never, met a gay person because they were either from a conservative time frame or,
Hmm.
and most people weren't out because they were afraid of being fucking killed or something.
Hmm.
So, but like after this movie came out in 1996, and it was like the number 7 movie for that year,
Hmm.
which is kind of crazy to think about. Um, it like there were all these like surveys that people were like these polls that people did of like, how do you feel on different topics? And like that was the year that they introduced like the gay marriage into the like conversation.
Mhm.
And like yeah, a lot of people didn't agree with gay marriage to be a thing at that time, but over time, like,
The
you
fact that it was
know,
even in the conversation.
yeah. And
in the
so
film.
like, 9 years later is when the first state enacted a same-sex marriage, which I think was California, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
California or Hawaii, I'm not quite sure. And then 15 years later is when it's um nationwide. So,
Mhm.
but it was just interesting to me that there
Yeah.
was that. But I guess to wrap it all up, I agree. You know, it didn't traumatize me, but it definitely stuck with me, and there are obviously reasons why it stuck with you and I more than probably most people did.
Mhm.
But most people I know about this film.
Mhm.
And, I'm sure it's because of Robin Williams being in it, that they were like, "Oh, he's, the greatest. Let's watch this movie." And they loved the film, or, and it's the first interaction that they had with, the gay community like we were talking about.
And and like I really see no problem like showing it to kids except for like you said the F word,
Yeah.
but like I
Maybe
there's
just have the conversation of like, we don't
this
say
is not a
this
good
for
word. Yeah.
you can't say that.
Yeah. Because I mean it's a perfectly fine, family
Hmm.
film, but
Hmm.
it does yeah. I don't
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I was
know.
like, there's not even really like much nudity other than the weird statues.
But
And
they don't even
then
show it that much. Like it's really
yeah, and then like the person changing in between um like numbers in the beginning of the
oh
film.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
like one guy in a jockstrap that like is changed
Yeah.
out to be
But
somebody
I've
else.
seen a lot worse in family
Oh
films,
my
so.
God. Oh my God. But
So so yeah, no, I think I think it's great. I think it's a great film. I think that it didn't mark me as much when I was younger. I like there were things that marked me, but the film itself, like as a film, didn't mark
mhm.
me because I think it was too slow for my extensions my attention
Attention
span.
fan. Yeah.
But like I the essential parts did stick, like
Hmm. Hmm.
especially the fact that Val's an ass.
My God.
That was
He
to me that
he
was the
is the
conclusion to
villain.
that film.
He is the villain. Um, oh yeah, and then they get married in that ceremony that's interfaith, which I was like, I thought you had a problem with the fact that they were Jewish. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
and they
and
just keep
it,
talking about Bob Dole the entire time, which I was
but
just like, who remembers Bob Dole? Like,
well,
but
that's kind
anyway.
of what I meant. Like the end of the movie was just kind of like let's wrap this up, and so like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
wedding is like during the credits, like it's not
Yeah,
even.
yeah. Yeah, that's why I was like, oh, wait a minute, there's that part at the end. Um, but I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
we've talked about it,
we're
but
talking about.
I guess what do you think our next film should be? Should it be Witches
I,
of
I
Eastwick, or you want to suggest something?
well, I was gonna say which is a Eastwick.
Hmm.
If you want to do two films,
Okay.
um, or we could just do two different episodes, but
Hmm.
they're both about
Either way.
witches.
Uh-huh.
I think we should do practical magic too.
Okay, yeah. That's what I was thinking too. I was like,
Because Witches of Eastwick and Practical Magic to me were almost around the exact same time where I
yeah,
was watching
I
them
think
almost back to back at
for you,
like
yeah, when you're
for
watching
me.
them, yeah. But
Because they were like both VHSs at my
hmm.
house and I
Hmm.
watched them constantly. And so
I
it was
know
just
you
kind
did.
of
And they were very significant for you, so I
yeah.
definitely understand it and agree. So, yeah,
Yeah.
if you want to do both or one, just let me know. We'll
Let's do both. Let's do both.
Okay.
Because I have a lot to talk about, so
Yeah. I know you do.
witches. We're gonna do like a whole
But
witch one.
yes. Yeah.
All right.
The
All right.
witches in the spring. But all right. So to wrap this all up, follow us on all of our socials. I do think TikTok is back, so if
TikTok
you
is back.
So follow us there, follow us on Threads, follow us on Instagram, and obviously this is going on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcasts. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Bye.